Okay, Anne, thank you. You're on.
Thank you, Jen. This is Ann Litz with the Maryland Horse Industry Board. I want to thank you all for joining us today. It seems like we're going to have people continually adding as we go along. Again, this is being recorded because the people could not attend, would like to watch it later, just so you all know. None of your names will be used and the chat will not be recorded. The chat is where we're going to ask questions, as Jennifer just let us know. So please put those in. We are going to try to wait till the end to cover the questions because it might be answered by one of our multiple wonderful speakers. So you are attending the Managing Stables, Horse Shows, and Eventing during COVID. This is a free webinar and we're looking forward to hearing from all our experts. And like I said, continue with questions. If you do not get a question in, my email is on everything that you signed up for, and so is Jennifer's. So please continue to email us, not only today, but in the weeks to come, and hopefully we'll be able to get all your questions answered. I do want to thank everyone for being on this call, and just to do an overall thank you for the excellent job our stables and events and horse people in Maryland have done managing things through COVID. We've had very, very few issues, and I just want to commend all of you. The people that are speaking today, our experts, are just going to go over what has been successful for them, challenges that they have had. They are advising you on the best practices that they have used, but nothing that they are using is a law or something that could be done. Different stables work well in different ways. So this is just sort of a community discussion and not a set of must-dos. So with that being said, I'm going to turn this over to Ross, the Executive Director of the Maryland Horse Industry Board, and we'll look forward to hearing from everyone else. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. I just want to reiterate to everyone what Ann said. So far, so good with our managing our horse industry. We're seeing an uptick in growth, but we know there's a surge going on with COVID. Katrina Weinig from Meadowbrook a couple of weeks ago said, boy, I would love to have a seminar with our licensed stables and our fellow stable owners on managing stables as we go into the winter. So that's exactly what we're doing today. In fact, Katrina is going to be one of our presenters. Just to let you know, we have over 700 licensed stables in the state of Maryland. That is about according to our numbers, over 10,000 students and over 15,000 horses. It's a huge segment of our horse industry. And it's really important that we keep up our best practices. And if one of us falters and becomes a hot spot, then it reflects on all of us. So again, we think from what we've heard so far and in the field, everything has been managed very well so far. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Odian, and he can speak from the state Maryland Department of Agriculture. We want to also thank our partners on this. University of Maryland done a great job, MDA, and of course the Maryland Horse Council. So Dr. Odian, if you're there, if you want to take it away.
Hi, thank you, Ross. Thank you for inviting me to speak. I'm honored to do so. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Michael Odien. I was an equine practitioner for 25 years and joined as the Maryland Department of Ag as the state veterinarian in January. So just gonna go ahead and do a quick recap of this wonderful year of 2020. In March 5th, the governor declared a state of emergency, which set the stage for him to be able to issue all the emergency orders and declarations that were issued. The most important one for us was on March 19th when he did the recommended stay-at-home order and closed non-essential businesses. However, farms and agricultural related businesses were deemed essential, as well as agricultural and farm workers were deemed essential. There was a bit of a discussion, sometimes heated at times, as to what defined an essential worker and who was an essential worker. But the equine community was able to basically settle the differences and work together and find the solution so that the horses could properly be cared for and exercised as needed. Then the next big thing was on May 13th, and one of the first businesses to be allowed to open was horse boarding and riding facilities. And that's a pretty big plus for the equine community, because it enabled the equine community to start showing our passion for our horses. One of the big events that happened in June was the Fasig-Dixon Thoroughbred Sale. And that sale is important because a lot of good things came out of that sale. There was the development of the fair, show, and auction guidelines, and that was a combined effort between the governor's office, the Maryland Department of Ag, and the Maryland Department of Health. And basically, it was a document that helped people safely and with the people's health in mind conduct horse shows and auctions and fairs. And as you know, county fairs and as well as state fair took on a significantly different flavor this year. They were pretty much just youth shows. And all the organizers worked with their local county health department, followed the guidelines. The participants were very compliant in following all the regulations, and all the county fairs, youth shows, and even state fair was held very successfully and very safely. As horse shows were held throughout the year, again, following guidelines and working with county health officials. And you're going to hear from some of the people who were instrumental in getting the horse shows done safely and healthy, in a healthy manner. And I'd like to say congratulations to those speakers for getting the job done and showing Maryland how equestrians can get the job done safely. One interesting event that was held in Timonium that was normally held in Harrisburg was a big standardbred sale. Pennsylvania was not equine friendly. Maryland was, so they brought the big sale down to Timonium. Again, it was held very safely and very profitably for all involved. And it brought in some extra money into the state of Maryland, which was because of the Horse Industry Board and Department of Ag and the governor, where they were able to have that sale here. So in summary, I'd like to say that the equestrian community in Maryland followed the guidelines, worked with health officials, and able to have all the equestrian events happen. The community clearly showed how to safely and enjoy our passion. And the questions, we can be very, very competitive, from the trail riders who look at each other and say, I bet you I can beat you across the field, to the upper level FEI equestrian competition. But even though we can be very competitive, we can be very compassionate, and we can come together in a time of crisis and conflict and help each other out and get things done. And I'd like to say kudos to the equestrian community for getting that done. Horses are the draw for new people into our community, but it's really the equine community and the people who make up the horse world that keeps the new people coming back and making them want to stay and be a part of our wonderful equine community. And I'd like to, again, thank you all for a job well done. And
Thank
with
you,
that,
Dr.
I'll turn it over to Neil.
All right, Neil from the Maryland Horse Council will give us a
Good morning. On behalf of the Maryland Horse Council and the other sponsors of the event today, I want to welcome everyone to this session. So the Mill and Horse Council, as many of you probably know, is a membership-based organization that represents the owners, riders, trainers, suppliers, and everyone else basically involved with the 100,000+ horses in the state of Maryland. We're not breed-specific or discipline-specific. Our goal is to represent all sports and disciplines within our Maryland horse community. And we also don't make the rules that affect horses and their owners in Maryland, but we spend a lot of our time trying to make sure those rules and regulations do not negatively affect our members. This year, we've also spent a lot of time interpreting and communicating those government rules and regulations because they've been changing so much. Our legislative and business committees, which are made up of our members, have put together numerous best practices documents and hosted a couple of town halls in the spring to help the horse community deal with the effects of the pandemic. And we're updating all of that information as it changes. And I anticipate that we'll be making a number of updates after this session, as I know there'll be a lot of good information here. All of our COVID pandemic information is available on coronavirus.mdhorsecouncil.org and in our monthly publication, The Equerry. And we invite you to check out the information in both places. And if you're not already a member of the Horse Council, we hope you will consider joining. And thank you once again. And I want to also congratulate everyone in the horse community, because I think it's been a struggle, but I think overall it's been a great result for us. And hopefully, as several others have said and probably will say, we hope that will deem well for us in the future.
Thank you, Neil.
Back to Ed. Thank you.
Thank you. We will get started with Karen Fulton from Full Moon Farm. Take it away, Karen.
Good. Hi, guys. I'm Karen. This is our crack staff here that has helped to navigate this whole COVID stuff. This is Ashley Pearman over here and Christine Rizak over here. And they have done an amazing job of, again, collective intelligence, trying to figure all this out, keeping our clients safe, and also trying to keep going through the pandemic. So what we'd like to do today is just briefly touch on some of the things that we've done that we've felt have been successful for our clients. I think the first thing to mention is obviously every stable is different, right? Like every stable has different stabling, has different setups. Some have arenas, some don't have arenas. Just briefly, we are a farm in Carroll County. It's on 80 acres. We have an indoor arena with 8 doors that can remain open. We have multiple outdoor spaces for tacking. We have multiple indoor spaces for grooming and tacking. And so part of our thing that I think has been successful is sort of making sure people know where they can tack and where they can untack. So what I'd like to do is have Christine, since she's the one that writes our lessons up on the board, just talk briefly about what we've put in place to make sure that we try to keep people socially distanced, which is a challenge. And part of why people come to a barn is their friends are here and they want to be with them. But we've got a system in place that's been actually pretty helpful. So Christine, if you want to touch on that real quick.
Sure. So when people come onto the property, there's a lesson board daily that's written up that includes lessons with up to 3 instructors at a time, as well as people who are going to come and free ride, whether they own or full lease their horse. And what we've done is we've coordinated a schedule that keeps the maximum amount of people that we can have on the farm with as much distance between them as possible. So we have 11 stalls for grooming and tacking inside of our barns, where we assign riders to tack their horses, groom them, and we alternate lessons to minimize the number of people in that particular space at one given time. We also require anyone who owns or full leases their horse, when they're coming out to ride on their own, we ask them to please groom and tack their horse in their stall. Again, just to minimize the amount of people and the traffic that's in the barn. We also have a variety of outdoor tacking spaces outside of the stalls in our 5 different barns. So we sometimes, on occasion, will also assign people to tack in those cross ties to be at least 6 feet apart. And then we have, anytime we have a farrier or a vet or another medical professional on site, we pull tack for the riders and we assign where their tack will be located, so we don't have as many people in and out of spaces when they're being occupied. So we use an online document, which I'll throw it over to Ashley as well, So the board, like we said, the whiteboard is used for when people arrive to the property. They come in, they see where they're to go, grab their tack, and then leave to that particular assigned space. But then Ashley also implemented an online Google Doc so that people can see how many are expected to be on the farm at a time and plan their ride times accordingly to minimize the amount of people on site.
And that was super, super important way back when we were really limiting the number of people on site, so they could see when they could come and when they couldn't come. But Ashley can tell you more about the Google Doc.
Yes, so back in March, when we had the 10-person rule, we were trying to figure out, okay, how do we let our boarders still come and exercise their horses so they're not losing their minds, getting out of shape. So we set up an online Google Doc that was specifically shared only with our boarders and leasers so that they could type in their times when they would be here. So we know that, okay, we don't have 20 people coming to ride their horses at 8 a.m. so that, you know, depending on the weather, we know how much space is available and that sort of thing. And then since then, as we've slowly been able to open back up for lessons, we've been recording our lessons on there as well. So our boarders can still see, okay, where's their rig space? What are the down times of the barn? When's it going to be really crowded? So that everyone can plan accordingly. Again, trying to split up, stay distant, and all of that.
Yep. And then the other thing that we've done from the start is obviously require, which was not a requirement for lesson students, they've got to have their own fly spray, they've got to have their own grooming tools, they have to have their own helmet, they have to have their own crop. All of those things they're bringing on and taking away. And that was different because we had always provided, you know, brushes for the horses between the stalls, but obviously that sort of everything's changed. So that's sort of what we've been doing. The other thing that I think has been very helpful is we have a Facebook group for our boarders and leasers. We have a regular Facebook page for all of our students. We have email lists. Communication has been really important. We have had zero trouble with anyone saying, giving us any trouble if we're like, you guys need to step away, you need to put a mask on. Like, everyone has been super great about that, but it really starts when people come and drive in and they park, and literally they can go about every 10 feet. And there's one of these signs. And if there's not one of these signs, there's one of these signs that just remind people, literally, they're all over the farm, reminding people to stay socially distant. Our parents have been great. When everything started feeling a little more normal this summer, we had allowed parents to come, and if their kid was in the indoor arena, they were able to spread out and watch from outside the arena, not in our parent viewing booths and stuff. Then in the last 2 weeks, when things have started looking not so good, we've required parents stay out of the barn entirely. They either need to stay in their car. If the lesson's being taught outside, they can go spread around the outdoor arena. And if it's not, then they don't get to watch their kids' lesson. And that's sort of that. Is the timer still on? Mm-hmm. So that's another way we've been able to sort of do that. And literally there are signs everywhere, which again, the parents have been great and they understand, and no one has given us any trouble about that at all.
Do you want to talk about wearing masks, everyone except on their own?
Yeah, and so the other part of that is everyone, employees as well, people that are doing stalls, whatever, everyone wears masks all the time. Other than when they're actually on the horse, like mounted on the horse, then they can take their mask off. And now we're having them put their mask back on before they're even getting off the horse. And everyone's getting real creative with how they tie their mask on their helmet and figure all that out. But again, necessity is the mother of invention, and people are figuring it out. I'm sure Ariat's going to come out with a great mask to ride with one of these days. And if we were all smart, we'd jump in on that. But again, that's trying to do as good a job as we can. And I think communication has been the key to that for our clients and boarders and all that stuff.
I think we also reduced spectators for shows.
Yeah, and then obviously we also had some schooling shows when that became allowed, and we still are having no spectators. We had an adult equitation team show yesterday, and we have no spectators here at all. So anyway, and everyone has been very respectful and sad about that, but they understand. So, all right, anything else? I think that's pretty much for us. So if anyone's
Thank-
got any
Thank you, Karen.
questions.
That's excellent. I'm going to encourage everyone to ask questions in the chat again, and I'll send a message
Good
myself.
question.
And if you have a specific question for our speakers, just put their name in. You're going to ask questions at the end in case other speakers cover that or encourages more questions. So with that, Karen, just if you guys can stay on, we'll get back to, I'm sure we'll have questions at the end, but that's excellent. And I love all your signs, and you've really set it up to be successful. So thank you, Karen. And then, well, there's going to be one question. I'll go real quick right now. Full Moon, where did you get your signs made? Who made your signs?
Yeah, that was one of our former boarders has a sign company, and I'd be happy to, and he came up with the design and everything. So I would be happy to, I can text that to you, Anne, if you want, with his number. So
that'd be great. I will share that with the group.
Okay.
Where we'll have a session of things to share, but that'd be wonderful, Karen. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, moving next. Thank you very much. To Katrina with Meadowbrook Stables, and we'll hear about her experiences and best practices.
Hi, everyone. I have a PowerPoint presentation to share, so I'm going to grab that really quick here. Oops, I hope so anyway. There we go. Good. Okay. So yeah, hi everyone. I'm Executive Director of Meadowbrook Stables, and I just want to start by thanking the organizers for putting this webinar together. These are really challenging times for all of us on multiple levels, and I think it's really hard in the midst of running a business sometimes to just think straight about what we need to be doing to keep our clients and staff safe and the business running. So I'm really happy to share our protocols with you. And it's interesting, I think a lot of us are probably already arriving at some of the similar approaches. Certainly it sounds like Full Moon is doing some similar things to us. But we do all have really different situations. So basically, just to give you a bit of background on Meadowbrook, we're a very large, busy, and very public operation, and that has forced us to be proactive on these issues. We are located in a suburban neighborhood. We have houses literally across the street. We're on the Rock Creek hiker-biker trail. We have hundreds of people going by every weekend. And we're also located on public lands that we lease from Montgomery County Park. So we're under a microscope in every way all the time. And as if, you know, in addition to wanting to keep everybody healthy, that is a huge factor. So in short, we have a lot going on every day. We have 50 horses to manage, about 100 riders on the property every day, 20 to 25 full-time and part-time staff. And we realized early on, certainly last spring, that to keep everyone safe and make sure, most importantly, or equally importantly, that our staff stay healthy so that we can take care of the horses and stay open, we really needed to have strong and clear and enforceable protocols in place. So we started by looking at, you know, really trying to understand all of the federal, state, and county guidance and law. And, you know, these are not always the same. I mean, what you're required to do by law and what are maybe the best public health practices given our, you know, physical environment and our business operations is not always going to be easy to figure out. So as you know, here in Maryland, the state has left a lot up to the counties to determine what works best for their demographics. And so the universe includes Montgomery County executive orders as well as the state and federal law. And just to give you an example of how complicated this can be, on November 6th, Montgomery County issued an executive order, 13 pages long, in fine print, imposing a wide range of new restrictions on businesses and gatherings and so forth. And I was reading through this and my anxiety level was just rising as I was trying to figure out what impact this was going to have on us, until at the very end, after 13 pages, there was sort of a catch-all provision for horse boarding and riding facilities, basically saying no new restrictions. But the point of that story is sometimes you have to read through all that fine print because you just don't know what, really how it's going to affect you. So in any case, our goal has always been to really meet or exceed, as I say in the first bullet point here, meet or exceed all federal, state, and county guidance, because we just don't want to get caught up on anything. It's critical to the trust of our clients, as well as the community and the county that we lease the land from, as well as just doing the right thing, keeping everybody healthy. So having sorted through some of this guidance, we tried to, and I also just want to give a shout out to our staff and board on this, because again, this was a group effort. This was many hours of conversations, of trying to sort through the practicalities, but where we really came down to just trying to figure out hard and fast and clear and understandable guidance was the CDC definition of close contact, which means someone who's within 6 feet of an infected person for at least 15 minutes. And what this did for us, where the light bulb went off, is we realized that all personal interactions, if you keep them physically distant and short in duration, it's a clear guideline that everybody down to the smallest child can understand, and it's easy to enforce, and it's easy to make it habit and to just build that into everything else you do. And also I should say here, as the guidance has become clear that transmission occurs really due to aerosols and less due to surface contact, we really focused on this, and we have not gotten too hung up on disinfecting shared tack and surfaces and so forth. It's simplified things a lot, because really this guideline has been our touchstone for everything. So the third step was really to define protocols based on that principle. And really the first and foremost is masks have to be worn at all times. Except when mounted or standing in the middle of the ring, even if no one's around. And the reason I have this picture on this slide is that, as you can see, this child's in a wash stall with a pony outdoors. There's no one around, but she's still got her mask on. We just want to remove all judgment from the decision of when to wear masks. So all staff, all people on the property, parents, I don't care if they're sitting at the picnic tables, everybody has a mask on at all times. And people have been fine with that. It hasn't been hard to enforce at all. Secondly, maintaining a 6-foot distance is critical. The sort of practical implications of that is not allowing people to congregate in the barn or indoor spaces. Our office and lounge are closed. We limit people in the tack room. We limit the number of people in a stall. And like Full Moon, we are staggering our arrival and departure procedures. We also have a Google Doc that we use for our boarders and lessees for scheduling. That's been incredibly helpful. I think people really like that. And one big thing for us, we are typically open to the public every day of the year, and we're now closed. So that's helped quite a lot too. A few other sort of practical changes that we've made. So for our 6 and 8-year-olds, we have a historic farrier shed on the property that sometimes served as a stall, sometimes it's empty. It's now become our horsemanship classroom. For our youngest kids, we have a program where they do 30 minutes of unmounted instruction and 30 minutes of mounted instruction. So this has basically become their home base. It takes all these kids out of the barn. They're in groups of 3 with 1 instructor. As you can see, it's very well ventilated. And then their mounted portion is in the ring right next to that. So that's taken just a huge group of people out of the barn and kept them sort of out on the property. The 9 to 12-year-olds, we put all their tack and all of their equipment out at the stall for them. Their home base is their stall. When they check in, they go right to the stall, they groom, they tack up, they go out to the ring. Only the more advanced riders, the boarders, leasers, and anybody sort of 12 and up, they're allowed to go into the tack room to get their own equipment, but also limited to 2 at a time. So this has really spread things out. We also stagger our staffing. We just want to make sure that we limit the number of people that anyone is coming into contact with. This is probably a good time to mention that we actually have had 2 staff test positive for COVID since the pandemic began. We had one of our barn crew back in April, and then another staff member just last month in October. But both times, because of the masking, the social distancing policies, and I think most importantly, because of the staggered schedule, there was no community transmission. No one else on the staff became sick. And also because there'd been very little overlap. We were contacted by contact tracers, but fortunately, only one of us had to quarantine. And I can't emphasize how important that is, because if you find yourself in a situation where you have like 6 of your staff have to quarantine, you know, what are you going to do? So that's another reason for making sure that you really stagger your schedules. And then another piece of this, again, which Full Moon mentioned, I think it's tremendously important. Once you develop your protocols, training is critical. All of our full-time and part-time and volunteer staff, all the way down to our teenagers who help with lessons, everybody was trained multiple times. Communication to clients, staff, officials in the community is important. We do it by constant contact, by signage around the property, Facebook, Instagram, any way we can think of. Consistency is critical. I know sometimes, especially with boarders, it can be hard. There's always, there can be those people that it's hard to get them to comply. We have not had a problem with that, but I think it's partly because we're polite but firm with absolutely everyone. And then, of course, there's ongoing, you know, review and modification. There's also a paperwork component to this, which is a little bit boring, but I'm going to mention it anyway because I've got a legal background, so my mind just works this way. We all have liability waivers, and most of us have board agreements. We just added a communicable disease clause to our liability waiver, and as you can see here, it's very, very simple. It simply says that the rider assumes the risks of illness or injury arising from sickness and disease. It's pretty straightforward, but I think important. Another piece of paperwork that's new to us is this acknowledgement and acceptance of COVID-19 safety protocols. I'd be happy to share this with anyone, but essentially everybody, all staff, all riders, everyone has to sign this. Riders sign it when they register for lessons. And the reason we do this is to make sure that everyone's aware of what our procedures are. So there's no one can say, oops, I'm sorry, you know, I didn't know about that. Everyone's aware, and everybody's assuming responsibility and recognizes that they could be asked to leave and they're not going to get a makeup lesson or whatever if they don't comply. So again, pretty straightforward, just a little way of protecting your business operations. So in conclusion, I would just say that, you know, again, going back to that CDC guidance, you know, I think all of us recognize it's not really a question of if a staff person or client is going to test positive, it's a question of when. And so you just want to always be able to answer these questions. You know, if a contact tracer calls you, you want to be able to truthfully answer no. And that's sort of our guidance here. And I think most importantly, we never want to look back and wonder, you know, if we could have done more to keep people healthy and safe. So that's really all I have at the moment. I'd be very happy to answer any questions if anyone has any. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Katrina. I think we will have some questions at the end, and then there is a request to share your PDFs as documents. Everyone that's a participant, Jennifer and I have your emails. So after this, we are going to put this live on one of our YouTube channels after it's completed. And so when I email everyone that link, we can also attach the PDFs that Katrina, you think are appropriate to share, and continue to, you know, this encouragement. There we go. Yeah, so we'll share all the paperwork as we go. And then we'll continue with the rest of the questions at the end, but thank you very much, Katrina. And then we will move forward with Streett. If Streett would like to take over. And Streett Moore is from McDonogh School. And Jennifer, I don't see if Streett is able to unmute himself. And we will unshare your screen now, Katrina.
Hello, I'm Streett Moore, Director of Riding at McDonogh School. I'm also the owner of Belfield Farm Show Management, and we've been able to host some pretty successful horse shows here. And what I thought I would do is turn my camera around. Since I have a mask on, I hope everybody can hear me. But I'm going to turn my camera around, and I'm going to run through some of the protocols that are in place here at McDonogh, and also protocols for the horse show. So the first thing when you arrive at McDonogh, you will get your temperature taken by this machine. And I'll do that. As you can see, my temperature was normal, so I can proceed. We have a hand washing station right next to the thermometer. Then I'm gonna walk you through the barn real quick and show you some of the cool things that we've done here at McDonogh. Certain tack rooms are open. And we build a bubble here. What we do for the shows is McDonogh riders and staff into this area. We have gotten portable restrooms for other people that are at the horse show to use. So here's a separate bathroom just for the riders. Separate bathroom for outside essential workers, farrier, vet, etc. And separate bathroom for McDonogh staff. So I'll buzz right along here and take you to the next place. So if you were to come to a show at McDonogh, you would be stopped on your way in, and you would be asked to sign this waiver, which asks you 5 questions for health and exposure, as well as a COVID waiver. We also scan your temperature, and you get an armband for the weekend. The temperature is taken every day, but the armband is good for the entire time since you've signed all the waivers. Everybody at McDonogh is required to wear a mask the entire time that you're here. So parents are not allowed into the barn unless they get a temperature check, and they're here to find one of their very youngest. Most of the time they're not in. I'll flip the camera around again and show you some other things. When we have our temporary stalls set up, we have a 12-foot aisle now. We used to have much smaller. So we've opened up the aisles, and we group the exhibitors into pods. Basically, if you came from out of state and you're a stable, or even when Katrina's group shows up, Meadowbrook Stables, they're all stabled in one area. So they're not sharing with outside people. So all the aisles are set up 12 foot. There's hand sanitizer right here in the front of the barn to use, and all over the place. And I'm gonna walk you outside and show you some of the things we've done out here. I know it's raining, but it won't take long. So over here is our food stand, and we have lines painted on the ground for social distancing purposes. We also have lines going into, so you can see the lines. We have lines going into the show office for social distancing. You can see that. All the seating area, the chairs are all spread apart. And we don't do any ribbon presentation in the ring. The ribbons are placed on a ribbon tree outside a building, outside the indoor. And you can come, we built a picture taking area, and you can come over here and have your picture taken with your ribbons. All sort of self-serve. That works out really well. So far, we had one COVID case at a horse show. Someone attended a show after they had been near another person, but we had no transmission at the horse show, so we were good to go with that. Now we're in the indoor riding ring. It has 120 by 240 feet. We have 8 doors that we can open on the ring that we open for the shows. We've developed an in-gate and an out-gate system. So this would be the in-gate. And then across the ring on the other side is the out-gate. So you won't be sharing traffic with anyone. It's just a one-way system. The ring personnel sits behind this wall. If you come to show at McDonogh, there's a 4-acre field that handles and accommodates all the parking. So here's the out gate out of the ring. So you only go one direction as you go in and one direction as you go out. The ribbons are posted on this building right here. And we put up the results, posted on each side. And then there's some COVID waiver signs. So you pick up your ribbons, self-serve. Then you would go out to the picture area and take a picture. We also have portable restrooms in a separate building, which is kind of raining, so we can't show you much. But we also have a tent in the back parking lot with 24 stalls. Basically 1 or 2 barns take that tent, and that way they're socially distant. The stalls have 12-foot aisles. We set that up just for COVID. So we're planning to run an event this weekend, and hopefully it all goes smoothly. We've taken a lot of precautions to keep people out of certain areas. Here's hand sanitizer by the in gate. Here's signage, parents that way, horses that way. A couple of things that we're thinking about doing for this weekend is we're gonna have people at both doors. And we'll have a counting app that we found called Head Count. And that way we can control how many people come in both sides of this. So there'll never be more than a certain number of people in the indoor ring. So we don't have any spectators, obviously, but every now and then a parent will roll up and want to watch their child ride. So we'll have to control that area very carefully. So that's our plan. And the other thing we've been able to do is worked really hard with Ross and the Maryland Horse Industry Board to try to make all this possible. So we've had a series of shows starting in August, and we've done pretty well with those as far as turnout and as far as only having one COVID potential case from one of the shows. I'd be happy to take questions. I just thought I'd give you a quick run around and show you questions, center close, all that kind of stuff. So
we'll have some more questions at the end, but I know you just took a trip to Disney to see how they were doing things a little bit down there on your vacation. I thought that was very interesting. And if you just wanted to share maybe some high points or some interesting tips that you picked up on how they're handling their, which I didn't even know they had a trail riding group.
Yeah, we went on a trail ride in the Fort Wilderness campground, and of course you wore a mask the whole time. But the preparation of getting on the horse was very staged, and they wiped off any parts that you touched the whole time. That was pretty interesting. And then they also put all the helmets in a trash can as each group was done, and they took them back in the back and sanitized them and brought them out. So it was very, very professionally done, and nice, really nice. I enjoyed it. It was like 45 minutes, I guess. But some of the things that they did were basically the no touching of certain areas, which was pretty fascinating to watch how they cleaned all the helmets and did all that stuff. So here's our tent that we have out back, and people are pretty happy about staying out there since they can be in their own group and not stable with somebody else that they don't know. So anyway, I think that about covers it. If there's any other questions, comments, or anything, throw them out there at the end and I'll try to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks for walking around the rain with us today. Carolyn Mcintosh from Loch Farm is on, and we'll look forward to hearing from you now. Carolyn.
All right. I am Carolyn Mcintosh from Loch Farm, and I've been running horse trials and different events from Adamstown, Maryland since 2006. And we got about 265 acres and we're very spread out. We have a competition course, 9+ acres of all-weather rings. And right now it's all set up with over 100 cross-country jumps. So the poor people that can't go to Florida or don't want to go there or go to South Carolina, they can stay in Maryland and come in cross-country school here. And the my cross-country schooling grass course is also open all year long. I've got a jump chute here that I just put in this year, and a gallop track indoor. I'm not promoting, I do have boarding barns, but I am going to wait until this COVID is over before I pursue anything like that. But that's all ready to go once this is over. I think I can handle that as far as finding a trainer that would like to take over the 14 stalls here and the acres, the paddocks. So what we're doing here, things have changed quite a bit. I started when when everything started going crazy, we started social distance schooling, which meant you drove into the property and down into the base area in the valley and you parked. And I have about 12 acres down there where people can spread out. Then you take a hack path up to the schooling area. And we would limit the number of people that could be on the property at one time. And everybody had to sign our new waiver. We do an uploaded waiver so that you sign it before you even come. You send us your coggins, you pay, everything's done. We don't touch anything. So that is continuing now with the all-weather rings. So that's open for people, but they have to send a rider list. Their waiver has to be on file, their coggins, we need that, and their payment has to be made. And I limit the number of people that can come. And as far as my staff, everybody is basically working remotely now. I went and bought a few more computers. So the base is up in the office, but we got Splashtop. So I have 3 or 4 people working on all of our entries that we have. We have to wear masks at all times. The volunteers come now and they do not, we don't give them any paper anymore. We're starting a new system that I found that Australia uses called Compete Easy. So basically I have iPads for dressage, and the judge will have an iPad, and then the scribe doesn't even have to be with the judge. They could be on two-way radios or phones, and the scribe will have a stylus and an iPad and listen to the judge and write out all the comments just as if they were writing on paper. And as soon as the judge is done and sees the test, which they're sharing on a screen, the judge signs the test, and then it goes directly to the competitor. So the competitor doesn't have to touch anything. And now the competitor will sign up for all the events or anything that they want to do here through Compete Easy. Their results are real time. They will be able to see what happened on course, because the cross-country jump judges will be using the app on their phone, so that they can do as many as 8 jumps out on the cross-country course now. And you can watch what's happening while a rider goes on course, and you can see if they missed a jump based on what the cross-country jump judge puts in or does as far as what the scoring. And the same thing goes for show jumping. Everything now will be timed, because once the rider finishes the course, they can see what happened on the course on their phone. We won't have a scoreboard anymore where people gather. And what's great about it is as soon as the division is finished, it automatically places you. So when you get your placement, you can go up. We have like a giant lattice that we put all the ribbons on, and all that is self-serve. So literally you can drive in here, do your event, and drive out without even coming close to anyone or any judge or any score runner. I don't need score runners anymore. A dressage test passes through 8 hands before it goes to the competitor. And this way, this goes straight to the competitor as far as their test will come, just as if they picked it up off our clipboards. So that's really, really great what's been going on. So I'm real excited. We're going to use it this weekend on our cross derby. And how we're going to handle that is people will drive in, and we have a lot of parking. So we're going to limit the number of riders that can be up here at one time. So they will be temp checked as they come into the property. If my parking people, Bob, thinks there are not enough spaces or something, he will hold the trailer down below, and then they can come up. We do our schoolings right before each division on the cross derbies on the all-weather rings. So we'll limit the number of people that go into school. They come off the rings, and then we will do each division. And each division has less than 20 people. And they go one at a time, and we have one person on course at a time. So really there is, no contact whatsoever. The bathrooms are all spread out. I've put in a lot of wash basins throughout the property so you can wash your hands. There's sanitizer everywhere. We have mask signs everywhere. I won't be having any stabling at all, but we did have a couple of people just come down, and we just spread everyone out. So basically that's what I'm working on right now. And yeah, so people come every day to school, but they have to send me rider lists and do all their waivers and everything in advance. So I did have kind of a video I can show if I can make it happen, which I don't know if I can or not, but I have to turn off my virtual background. So this is my wonderful daughter got on her electric bicycle today and just ran through the rings. I don't know, are you able to see this?
Not yet. If you want to, this on your screen, Carolyn?
Oh, okay, hold on. Can you see it now?
You tilt down just a little more. Great.
So we have about 100 jumps set up on the 3 all-weather rings. And it's kind of a bit of a mess right now, but by tomorrow it should be pretty well dried out. And then this weekend, it's our donation derby. Everybody gets dressed up, and it's for charity for the Carroll Manor Fire Company, who does a lot of our EMT stuff. So, yeah. But then we'll have, in January, we'll have another we'll have another derby, the January 2nd, and then we do one in February and a 2-day in March before we take all the jumps off the rings.
We're losing the screen a little bit if you want to just recenter.
Can you see it now?
Yes, I think half of it. But it gives us a good idea. Your beautiful rings.
Yeah. And I just put in a baby bank in the bottom too, so. Yeah, my son was here this weekend and did a drone shot, but apparently the card got eaten. So this is my substitute. So
Good substitute.
yeah, we've got a lot of rain.
Yes, we do. You have a lot of beautiful jumps.
Okay, well.
And Carolyn, I went ahead and shared the link in our chat to the Compete Easy, and we'll include that on our follow-up email as well.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, because that's how we're going to do everything. No more paper entries. And it'll cut down on just a lot of work. One thing I do miss a lot of, and I hope when COVID is over, is the volunteers. Volunteers, we have the best volunteers. And a lot of times we have these big get-togethers afterwards. I mean, they all sign up through eventingvolunteers.com. And we usually have a big volunteer party after every event, and that everybody just loves being together. And it's been very difficult that we haven't been able to do that part of competing. And so I think once all this goes away, it'll be great to have everybody back together again. But we're trying to do the best we can right now.
Doing it. Thank you very much, Carolyn, and all our speakers. We're going to go ahead and move to some questions, and hopefully all our speakers looks like they're all still on. I will, unless it's person specific, I will just open this up to our speakers, and you let me know if you have what you'd like to share. So one of the first questions we had is if anyone has modified their cancellation policy. Farms have had to say in-house they allow cancellations when sick and encourage staff to do the same. Does anyone want to share their experiences? A certain farm has had positive COVID exposures resulting in 2 weeks of quarantine, but no further cases. However, this is a challenge for revenue from canceling lessons as they allowed us to qualify for COVID relief funding. So the 4 speakers on here who's had, Katrina, go right ahead.
So we have a somewhat unique situation in that our school year lesson program runs from September through May, and it's 35 weeks, and we have people registered for the whole 35-week program up front. What we did this year that's different than usual is we built in 4 weeks at the end for COVID-related cancellations. So if we have to close, we've already closed for 1 week. Actually, when one staff member tested positive, but so we've built in those makeups. But if we have a family member or a rider, if somebody has COVID in their family and they let us know and they don't want to come or don't feel they should, we want to encourage that. We certainly want people to be open with us about that. So what we're doing is just giving them makeups. They've already paid for it, but we just give them a makeup because we really want to encourage transparency and sort of open and honest reporting.
Thank you, Katrina. Karen, Fulton, did you have, go right ahead.
Yes.
So at full moon, our policy is 2 hours notice for a group cancellation and 24 hours notice for a private lesson cancellation. So obviously right now, and always, if someone wakes up sick in the morning, we're willing to be, flexible with the 24 hours. But right now we're definitely increasing our flexibility. I just, like I had a kid last week, mom called and, has 2 kids in lessons and, the one woke up not feeling great. So, obviously we're going to say, okay, keep both of them home and everyone's been really great about communicating with us. We've had some riders whose schools have been asked to quarantine. So we just kind of roll their lesson count forward if they have to do a 2-week quarantine. So we're not requiring them to do the makeups. If they want to, that's great once they come back, but otherwise we're not requiring it. Just because obviously, you know, we have to be extra flexible in this time. But everyone's been really great about it.
Excellent. We'll keep moving forward with our questions. I know we have some coming in. There's another question, just wondering for those that host shows or events. Carolyn spoke on this quite a bit, but do you require participants to pre-enter, or do you allow any entries on the day of? And again, I open this to our speakers, how you're handling that. Streett, go right ahead. I think you're still muted, Streett.
There we go. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I kind of forgot to mention that, but we installed a show management software solution entry system. We built 2 new websites, McDonogh School Horse Show Management, and we also built one for Belfield Farm Show Management. So all entries have to be done online and before the show. So we normally have a cutoff. That way we control the number of people that attend. And all that's done, like even the billing is done through email. They don't really have to go in the show office unless they want to pay with check.
Excellent. And I know Carolyn spoke to that, and I assume, Carolyn, that all your entries are taken prior.
Yeah, they are. And we have a really big wait list for this weekend, which we're going to ask them to, they're just going to have to move on to January. But yes, we don't want anybody in the office. And there's no need to go in the office now, really.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are we good? All right. So for full moon, we've been using a lot more of the Google Sheets and forms and online setups. A lot of times what we usually in the past have our riders do is signups in the barn. But since we're asking parents not to come up to the barns, that's not really doable. So we've gone to a lot of electronic stuff. On the days of the shows, we do have the office open, but we've been hanging clear shower curtains and not letting anyone in the office. So they have to talk through the shower curtain and communicate that way just to keep our distancing. And we are definitely pushing for people to take care of everything before the show so we don't have to deal with things in person as much as possible.
Excellent. We'll move forward to our next question. And what procedures do you, to all our speakers, think you will keep in place after the pandemic, COVID pandemic ends? And how will this change future methods of operating? Of course, we don't have an end in sight right now, but if that's sort of a broad question, if anyone's sort of thought past that and certain practices that you will continue on with. Maybe this online pre-entry, now that everyone's getting really good about it, Full Moon or Carolyn or Streett, do you think that you'll continue, Katrina, with the using online and staying slightly touchless even as things get closer?
Yeah, I will say Streett's online entry system is phenomenal. That has just been great. I mean, there are a lot of online entry systems out there that have been in place for a few years, but some of them, just the user interface isn't that great, to be honest, and Streett's is really good. So we really appreciate that. As to what we'll do internally, couple of things. I love the fact that we've just spread out. I mean, we've only got 11 acres. We're not a big place, but we've got 4 riding rings. We've got a couple of outbuildings, as I showed. And I love that we have this horsemanship classroom now where we can take a pony out, have cross ties, have the kids out there, and really have this experiential, hands-on, learning center for our youngest kids. I just, when I think back to how I learned to do all that stuff as a kid, that's how. And I think that it's given us this, reminder that that's a really good thing. Kids love it and they all need to learn that. So by the time they move up the ranks, they're really independent. So that has been a good thing that I think we'll keep.
Yeah, so the Streett again. I think we're going to keep the online entry system forever. We love it. People have to pre-enter the shows. They pay the office fee. If they decide not to come, then they forfeit the office fee. So we don't have to chase them around. And the acceptance of credit card has been great for us. We never had that capability before right now. So, and building a website was something we could do during COVID when we couldn't do anything else. So we built these 2 websites that everybody can see what goes on at the shows. They have updates on there and all your waivers. Like a lot of people fill out all this stuff before they come. And that way it streamlines them getting into the showgrounds. We built a separate email address called equestrian@mcdonogh.org. And they can send in their Coggins test and all the paperwork. And then we don't even have to see it, or they don't even have to go to the office at all. We actually have been putting the numbers out on a table underneath the pavilion. So when you arrive at the horse show, you can just go out there and get your number already. You don't have to go into the show office.
Excellent. Carolyn?
I was just going to say, with the Compete Easy app, we're going to have them, they're going to print their own, and we're going to print their own penny number. And then we're going to encourage them to purchase the bridle numbers that you can put your own numbers into the holders that I think you can get from several vendors. They use those a lot overseas. And that way we don't have to provide any kind of numbers for them, that they can handle everything themselves. But we're definitely gonna, see how this flies this weekend, and definitely it's time for this. The touchless, everything's got to be touchless.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Karen, did you have anything else to add to that?
The only thing I was going to add is it's a double-edged sword. You really like to have people around the barn and feeling active, but honestly, it makes it a lot easier to get your job done when you don't have a bunch of parents running around. Again, they're paying for it, but it does make it a little bit easier. Again, spectators are great and there's a reason to have them, but it honestly has made, the shows feel different. But we're still showing, and everything feels a little bit different these days. So anyway, that was it.
Thank you. We do have a question in concerns about, or general issues with boarding. A certain farm has noticed that they have an empty stall for the first time and are having challenges filling. Has anyone else had any issues with that?
No.
And I'm sure if they want to reach out to me personally, I'd be happy to connect them with these farms. All right, and then Jen, I know Jen has a couple questions that I haven't gotten to. If Jen, you'd like to take the control and ask our speakers a couple of the questions that you have?
Yes, I do have a few. One specifically I want to get to first that does have to do with the shows, since we were addressing online entering and a lot of that. With the no spectator policy, with all of the online entering, and not allowing extra people around, have any of you done anything in terms of streaming your events or shows, or do you foresee working or starting anything like that for those family members and spectators that aren't able to watch?
Can't people do that themselves? Like they can stream their own kid, like on Facebook Live?
Yeah, but if we're not allowing any spectators.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, Streett, I'll get you unmuted.
Yeah, a lot of the bigger facilities like Tryon and stuff, and they've done that. It's also a double-edged sword, especially at the beginning of COVID, because they were having live streaming and people didn't have masks on at some of the shows. So I think as things return back to normal, then I think that would be a good time to work on that. I mean, we have COVID police at the horse show that walk around and remind everybody to pull up their mask. But in general, any kind of live streaming also presents a whole different set of issues that can be posted on social media. So I'm thinking I'm sitting tight on that just a little bit, but then once maybe things come back to normal, that would be something that we go to.
Right. I'm sure there are some liability concerns and issues with that as well. Katrina, with your legal background, I'm sure there are some things that could be potential and maybe needed to be included in a release if you're going to be live streaming people to a
Right.
public forum?
So, well, first of all, I totally second what Streett just said about that. That's actually a big issue. We actually, for our IEA show, any of you who are familiar with the IEA format, you have to school horses so that all the riders and coaches can see the horses in the morning before the show begins. We just had a 2-show weekend a couple weeks ago, and we did stream that basically just using Zoom, and anybody, we sent out the link and everybody could watch it. That was really straightforward, not expensive, and it worked. As far as the releases go, we're all very careful, obviously, to allow, to make sure that our clients sign social media waivers and so forth. I think we sort of do that as a matter of course. But legally, it's fine to take photographs or videos of people and use them as long as it's not for commercial purposes. So if you're doing it as sort of like a public information, just to like keep your clientele informed, there are no issues with that in terms of releases that I'm aware of.
Okay, so that was the question about streaming. I know that we'd had that earlier. We had a couple of people that asked about that in our chat earlier today. We did talk about a little bit about, some farms that have had difficulty maybe filling boarding spots, but in general, I know that we've had some of our other licensed stables say, and just if you want to just quickly speak to your experiences with this in terms of seeing an influx in people who want to come out and ride, since that's been something that has been allowed to happen, and you all seem to have done so well and so successfully kept some very COVID compliant kinds of settings. So did you want to mention anything about that?
Full Moon, do you want to go, or did you?
Yeah, we definitely, as things started to open up, I'd say, I guess it was August or so, we definitely had a bunch of new riders, also returning riders, people who did other sports and stuff, but used to ride a bit recreationally, who wanted to come back because their other sports weren't running. Families with young kids. We've got a bunch of like new 6-year-olds. I think, their parents just want to get them out of the house, want to get them doing something.
We've got a lot of 6-year-olds.
Yeah, we've got a lot of 6-year-olds.
They're all 6,
yeah.
and they're all here.
Yeah. And some 4-year-olds too. And, so we had a waiting list for the first time since I've been here in 3 years. Like I had a couple weeks waiting list where I just didn't have any spots where I could put people. So things have definitely calmed down a bit, I'd say, in the past month or so. We've had some people who are taking a break for the winter, that sort of thing. But I would say that a lot of our newer riders who came to us because of COVID are sticking with it, including quite a few adult riders as well, including, parents of some of the kids as well.
How about you, Katrina?
We're finding the same thing. I mean, I will say, those of you who know this facility, we're blessed with an amazing location. I mean, we are basically a quarter mile from all of Northwest DC, never mind a lot of Bethesda, Chevy Chase area of Montgomery County. So we're very convenient for people. So we always have a little bit of a waiting list. But this year we have, as I said, our program's about 280-ish riders. Our waiting list is about 150. I would love to be able to accommodate more people. We'd love to be able to do more in terms of our community programs, but we can't. So what we're doing is asking people to put their names on a wait list, because of course we wonder, like, is this sort of a flash in the pan or is it going to last? So we want to capture these people's names. We ask them to put themselves on a wait list, and that'll give them priority registration for the summer programs. So we're just trying to capture the interest now and hope that it sticks. Yeah.
Thank you, Katrina. I know Hope Bursch at the Maryland Saddlery, we've spoken to her, and like you said, the 6-year-olds and children and adults coming back to it. I mean, the amount of kids she has coming through each week, buying, helmets and boots and getting themselves going. So we have seen an increase in that. So thank you for all sharing that, and also encouraging people to safely, figure out riding for themselves, even if they don't potentially stick with it for the next couple of years. they could easily always come back to it. We see a lot of that. So
yeah,
it's a great first impression. Jen, did you have any other questions that we're going?
I do. We had another one come in, and this is actually, I think, quite a good one. And for those of you, well, for anyone, any of you, with the barns that you have in terms of staff and students now during the holidays that may be traveling and wanting to visit family or traveling out of state, are you requiring any wait time before they come back to ride, or testing before they come back to ride, or are you just kind of letting that go? Like, what are you doing in regards to that, staff and even potentially riders that may want to travel, especially during this holiday season?
Do you want me to jump in on that?
Sure.
So as a general rule, with as many riders as we have, again, we go back to that acknowledgement and agreement. We're just asking people to be responsible for themselves. For the most part, we think people have been. Certainly there have been 6 or 7 cases of kids who've stayed home because either they or a family member tested positive. But actually, just listening to this question, I'm thinking, you know, we're closed on Mondays. Our lesson program starts again tomorrow. I think we're going to send out an email today reminding people that if they've traveled, to please consider being tested and quarantining before they come back to ride. I think that's a great idea. As far as staff go, I am so fortunate to have an incredibly supportive, committed staff. And I think we all recognize the risks, and everybody so far has been really great about getting tested weekly and being careful about their travel. So I have a huge level of trust in the staff, but I do think with a large client base, a reminder is a really good idea.
Not a bad idea.
Also,
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're in the same boat as Katrina is. Like, you just have so many clients, you really need them to be responsible for that. And there's no way that we can well, I mean, I guess we could mandate that, but then you won't have any clients. So, but I think the reminder is probably not a bad idea, just to have people thinking about it. And our staff is great as well. And I think everybody's really cognizant of the issues. And if anybody's at all feeling ill or whatever, we'd much rather have them not come. Like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Streett, did you have something to add?
Sure. Basically, the school has policies that are in effect for travel outside of the Mid-Atlantic area. So we have to ask people to follow those. And there's a questionnaire that each person that would be a student would have to fill out each day that's come to the barn. What we did was we closed this week to outside lessons. We knew we were running a show this weekend, and we didn't want to have people travel for Thanksgiving and then come back into the barn. So we basically closed the barn this week while we're setting up for the show, other than people that are owning horses or riding, boarding, or showing. But we really closed our outside lesson program because we were nervous about the travel part. So periodically we do that we'll close for a couple days based on the fact that the horse show generates the income for the riding program at a faster pace than individual lessons, obviously. So it's kind of a choice we have to make along the way. We did the same thing around the time of Labor Day. We closed lessons for about a week when we thought people might travel a lot. So that's kind of how we're handling that.
Good idea.
Thank you. And we have another question come to ask about attracting new or returning riders. What businesses have been using for marketing purposes? I will say, just watching the Horse Industry Board coming by, social media tends to be the least expensive way to get there. I'd also encourage stables to visit their local tech stores safely and put up information there and speaking to their stores. But our speakers that are on, if you'd like to talk about marketing, if you've had to do any marketing to attract new riders, and if so.
So I would say, in addition to, I see somebody Instagram and Facebook, of course, but I have found creating a Google ad and profile You know, we find that a lot of our new business is somebody being like, riding lessons near me, you know, and Google pops up, and you want to be at the top of that list. And the way you do that is you get, you know, your 5-star ratings or as close to it as possible. So you have to ask clients to write you ratings. It's, you know, it's not rocket science, but I do think getting a good Google, having a good Google presence is really important.
Yeah, for Full Moon Farm, we use our Google profile. We also have, like Karen mentioned, a Facebook page to the public, and then one privately for our boarders and leasers. And then we also run a farm Instagram account. And when the pandemic really hit full force and we were forced to close the majority of the public, we started doing a horse of the day. So we have approximately 60 horses here on the farm. And just once a day would post different pictures, giving a brief bio of the horses, including pictures we had of some of our lesson kids and families with the horses, to reintroduce horses that are on our farm, new horses that were coming in. And that way people who just followed our page were still able to engage and participate and see some of the life that was going on. I know with all of the social media platforms, they have your story option as well. So daily, you know, sunset pictures here, or here's our mini. At one point we had 3 or 4 minis that we turned out together and live stream them having a field day, literally. And it was just a nice opportunity for our community who couldn't physically be present to still feel like they were a part of the farm community and engage. And it is nice to scroll through and look at all the horses that we've highlighted over the months that we've been going through this.
And that was super popular.
Yeah.
It was very popular.
And, you know, the more active you are on social media, the more it's going to pop off on other people's, and the more you're going to get, you know, new clients in addition to maintaining the clients that you do have.
And I'll jump in. Don't forget the equity and our social media. We've got options for news blasts, and we're also managing some social media programs for people. So we always need support.
I have one other question from the behind the scenes group here. We had talked quite a bit, and I think you all did a really great job in sort of sharing some of the things that you have done and put in place regarding the COVID precautions and all that you have actually enjoyed or found to be useful and think that you want to keep in the future, regardless, like some of the online pre-entering, some of the apps that you found to work so well. But on the other side of that, so what have you found to be the most challenging part of getting through this more difficult time and more restricted time? I guess the question is, what was the most challenging part of that, and what is your advice for getting through? What did you find most difficult, and what would be your suggestion for what worked for you in terms of addressing that most difficult thing?
Well, I'll jump in. I think the most challenging part was the second staff person that tested positive, and the concern among other staff. I think it came at a time in October when we were all realizing that community transmission was increasing. And I mean, I think for all of us, you know, to be honest, anxiety is probably, daily anxiety about keeping everyone safe is probably one of the hardest things that we're all dealing with. But it really came to a head then. And I think what was really important, which I sort of alluded to at the end of my presentation, is that it made me realize that you just have to have, you know, you have to plan ahead and have a very clear plan for what you're going to do when you have that happen. Because I thought we thought it all through, but what we really hadn't thought through is how we communicate, what we communicate, what we say to people. And so there were a few days there that everybody was just a little bit, there was a little bit of uncertainty among the staff, and we were all, anxious. So I'd say that's been the hardest thing. But I think going forward, now that we've had that conversation, it'll be a little bit easier if it happens again.
Though I think to key off what Katrina just said, I think a lot of people are still kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop and worried it's going to get worse, and sort of that I think is causing a lot of stress about, we thought we had some vision into the future a few months back, but now it seems to be turning back on itself.
Yeah.
Peddicord, do you have any other questions? I know that this will be a continued ongoing conversation between all of our stables. We have had a lot more people contacting about licensed stables and looking through that and question. I think there's a trust in all of you who have done such an excellent job, and that you're willing to follow the rules and be flexible where you need to be, which I think will give people a lot of encouragement moving forward. And I think that's all the questions that I have that have come through for me. Jen, did you have any others?
I would say I think we've addressed all of the questions that I had here that had come through to me as well. It looks either in the presentation or in this question section here. I think you've all addressed those pretty well, and it's been very interesting to hear how everyone has handled things and the similarities in how you've done how you've implemented the different things that you have, but also very encouraging to me that your riders and your folks in your communities, even though these are 3 different places with 4, we had Loch in there as well. We have different places with very different types of riding going on, different types of clientele involved, and people seem to be doing so well in terms of being willing to follow the compliance rules that you've put in place so that they can still participate in the way that they want to. So I find that very encouraging to hear that you've had such good responses to the new protocols that you've had to install. So thank you for sharing all of that. That's very, very great to learn about.
Thank you, Jen, for getting this all set up. I'd like to bring Ross back on to just speak a bit to wrap us up. And then you all have my email with continuing on for questions, and we are all in close communication at the horse board and with our licensed stables. And like I said, I will follow up with an email once we get this up to a YouTube channel and with the other requests that we had for PDFs. But Ross, if you're still on, if you'd like to wrap us up. And I want to thank everyone. We had a wonderful participation today, so I really appreciate you all taking the time to be with us.
I just want to reiterate what Jen and Ann have said, and thank everyone for getting on, and encourage more dialogue. And if people on the call have more questions, please feel free to email us. And also, as Jen said and Ann said, this has been recorded, and the information will be available and sent out to you. So again, so far so good. Let's keep up masking and staying safe, and I hope we get through this winter with no more restrictions, and we can all keep operating and have a good spring as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ross. And with that, we will end this meeting. And as you said, please continue to reach out to me. And as things come along, things you'd like to suggest, we will recap over the next couple months. But if and when things change or updated, we will get together here again if that is something people would like, because we have amazing horse people, and horse people are disciplined. I think it really shows in how you've all conducted business and kept these stables open. So we're just very lucky to work in such an amazing industry with horse people in their horse sense, if you will. So I want to thank you all again, and you have my email, and I will follow up with you this week. And I wish everyone a good week, and get past this rain day. Thank you.